What's up, y'all? Welcome to another Successful Sundays. I have a very, very special topic here for you today because I have a very special guest. This is not the first time I've been speaking with Cam. Cam was on my podcast over a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been talking back and forth for I don't mean since then, and if not before. So before we get into it, I just want to make sure everyone understands that this is a session that I do every Sunday to just figure out how we can live and love our dope lives and be successful into the week we have ahead. And today, the topics we're talking about, trauma as Caribbean descent and how we work through it. And I'm going to be talking about certain things that I've seen with my clients. Cam's going to put his input on it, but this is a conversational piece. This is just me and Cam going back and forth, and we hope that you can gain some insight off of it. So I'm done rambling. And Cam, please tell the people a little bit about yourself, who you are, and also where they can find you.
Sure. Thank you, AJ. And, it's a pleasure getting to connect with you again after so long. My name is Cam Bassier. I've been a health and fitness coach for over 20 years now. And this has basically been my life's work, working in the fitness industry for 2 decades. And then over the past few years, insights from my experience working with clients over the years, I've also transitioned into life coaching and getting into more of the mindful space. And, my career has been a reflection of my insights and my journey and just understanding that when I first got into the industry, it was really more about helping people lose weight and get fit physically. But
Mm-hmm.
the longer I stayed in, the longer I did it, I really began to understand the importance of the mind, of emotional, psychological, spiritual health. And so over the last 2 decades, I've become really a student of holistic wellness. And that's what I do today. So I'm a weight loss coach, but I really use a lot of mindfulness and life coaching concepts to help
Mm-hmm.
clients on the fitness journey, because as we know, the two go hand in hand.
They all work hand in hand. And thank you for that. You definitely touched on a couple of things in terms of like mindset and when it comes towards our exercise and routine and things like that. I know like even with my journey, like I started in September of last year and I could have started earlier, but my mind wasn't there. I'm gonna be honest, like my mind wasn't really there. And funny enough, it was like a Sunday like this and I was just like on TikTok and then David Goggins popped up. Jesus Lord.
Yes.
And he was just like, "You're just lazy. You know what to do. You're just late." And in my head, like I know it was kind of rough, but the first thing I said, I'm like, I do know what to do. And I'm like, why am I not doing it? What's going on? And literally that moment I got up, went in my bedroom and I set out my gym clothes for the next day and it's just been a routine ever since.
That's
Just one
wonderful.
thing just switched off because I always said to myself, I know how to get back. I just need to figure it out, like give myself grace in this season. And you and I've talked about that topic so much of how grace is important for us. So once that happened, everything just clicked. And if you are into wellness, like your mindset needs to be there. Cause let me tell you, and I'm sure Cam can tell you, there's days you don't want to do it.
Absolutely.
And you're just doing it because you know, okay, I have to do it. And then after that, you feel great. Funny enough, like you feel like, okay, I'm glad I did it. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, like I don't know how does that work with even your clients when the
You
days,
know,
I'm sure they tell you, I
it,
don't want to do it, Cam.
So, and to your point, the last 2 years now, even on my own personal journey, I have molded myself into a morning person. And I have been forever labeling myself, which is something we can speak to at length. I've labeled myself, I'm not a morning person. I'm a night person. I like to start my day later in
Really?
the day. And, some life circumstances forced me to become a morning person because I didn't have a choice. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, I am now a morning person. I now get up at 5:30 every day, and I take care of myself first before I go out and be of service to the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I love what you said about there was just a turning point, and I think that you've defined what I feel has become my life's work, which is how do you create a system, or how do you get someone to that point of being on the roller coaster, starting, stopping, pulling the covers over your head and avoiding the world for months
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes years. And I've really been trying to crack the code for what will get someone to the point where you got to. And there's so many different avenues. One of the ones I do believe in is a fool becomes wise when he persists in his folly. So
Yeah.
if you
Yeah. I
keep
mean,
doing the same thing over and over, and this is not the positive way to describe it, but sometimes, many times, and I would say myself included, sometimes it just involves getting sick and
Yeah.
tired of
Yep.
being in the mud, and then recognizing that it's all on you. But when we initially started messaging, we got into a discussion about grace. I defined grace as also radical acceptance, like the acceptance of one's situation. So wherever you were, wherever anyone is, where they're feeling stuck, you have to accept where you are, and that's giving yourself grace. It says, here's where I am, and you're also at a point where I just see that what I'm doing right now is not only not elevating me,
Hmm.
but it's just pulling me down
It's
lower and
almost
lower.
it's almost like it's depleting you even more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is what I really, really focus my attention on, is like, where can I meet someone where they
Mm.
are? And then what tools and what strategies do I need to implement to help that person say, okay, I can do this much.
Yeah.
Because as you know, and I would love to get your thoughts on it,
Yeah. I
what got you from, okay, Goggins got it. Goggins, when you say you saw this video,
yeah.
we acknowledge that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
That was
That was
the
the right. It
last
wasn't like
key.
that
Of
singular
course.
thing.
Oh, that was like the last push. I knew what I needed to do. I already knew it. I was aware. I went from being a person like, as you and I discussed, I was off for a bit from my job because of the fact that I was hurt, assaulted unfortunately. And yeah, my weight increased. I ate and I drank. Not gonna lie. And then it just got to the point where one day I just said, okay, you used to work out every day during your split. You used to be like that person. Maybe it's not working for you now. Maybe we just need to adjust. And I finally was just like, in a sense of what you said, I was sick of it. I was sick of how I felt. I noticed like I wasn't sleeping well. I noticed things weren't really how they should have been. And that's why I say like it's kind of, that saying, you can't bring a horse to you could bring a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. But like, and Goggins could have. I've seen many Goggins videos prior to that. I listened to him, but he was constantly bringing me to the water, and I was like, okay, okay. And finally, when I said like, what's really holding me back? What's my why? When I know, I mean, like, listen, I got weights in my place. There's no at that point when I looked at what I had, I said, there's no excuses. You really did purchase all these things for a reason. So why don't we slowly get back into it? And I think that's the important part with when it comes towards wellness is number one, of course, giving yourself grace. But I'll also say you don't have to do it like you once did. You
You
could
can.
actually because like I can't say if I'm now 36, 10 years ago, 26, completely different. Like completely different person. So I wouldn't be able to do what I did at 26 possibly because I've kind of shed that skin. So
Yes.
now I got to meet myself where I am at 36, almost 37, where okay, maybe we don't do an hour. Maybe we just do 30. I used to lift at the time 2 years prior to that, I was lifting I think up to 25, 20 pounds. 20 pounds, I remember, two 20-pound dumbbells. I said, girl, let's go back to 10. Let's go back to 10. Like, it's okay. And then eventually we'll increase the weight. And I think that's kind of what we touched on in our conversation offline was you got to give yourself grace in every season you're in because whatever you've gone through, it's created a different kind of path for you. It's not good. What you did before may not work. It just may not work. And I knew what I had to do. I was aware it was bubbling already, but the Goggins video was the last straw. That seeing him tell me you're just lazy, it spoke to me like you have the equipment, you know the exercises, you know what to do, you know your kitchen is literally your pharmacy. You're aware of this.
Yeah.
So let's lock in.
But let me ask you though, because what someone who is in your situation before taking action, a common rebuttal to that is, man, I know, but when I look at this mountain that I have to climb, when I look at all the stuff I need to undo, because I dug myself this hole. And
Mhm.
when I look at, and even to your point, I get into a lot of discussions about this, about trying to do what you did 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I call that, I'm like, yo, I deal with lifters too. Like, you're not stop being a nostalgia lifter. It doesn't matter if you did 225 10 years ago. That's not you.
Right. That's not
But
you.
it highlights a couple of things to think about there. Why? Why are we trying to undo what we spent 10 years doing in 6 months? Why do we, anyone who's, at least 20, 30 pounds overweight, that didn't happen in a year. It didn't happen in
No.
2 years. It didn't happen in 3 years. But then when we finally hit that switch,
Mm-hmm.
we initially start off from a point of kind of like desperation. And
E-
we wake up and we're like, oh man, what was I doing 10 years ago? I'm going to do that. And you're one, like you said, you don't have the same body, but also, why do I expect to just jump in back to it to where I was 10 years ago to neglect?
It's like a mind thing though. I think people are afraid of getting older. They're afraid of it. It's a fear. And I think it's a mind thing. We have this weird idea that we want to age, we want to get older because, that's a blessing, right? But we're so afraid of leaping out of what once was. But that's why I always tell all my clients to meet yourself where you're at, no matter what chapter you're in. And take your gosh.
What we what what we don't realize, and I'm sure you've experienced it since you've started back,
Yeah.
is yeah, you do have to take it slowly. In my program, when people sign up to work with me, they'll work with me for 6 months, and the first month we don't even talk about weights and calories and weighing food and macros. It's like, let's get you a good nice rest every night.
Let's talk about that.
Let's go take a walk. And if you feel inclined to go take a yoga class, by all means, it's like we have to prioritize healing our nervous system first, right?
Yeah.
And then, as we know, but we don't actually acknowledge this point out loud, AJ. Our body is its own thinking, living, breathing entity.
Mm-hmm.
And when we take the time to start slowly,
Mm-hmm.
it might not be in a month,
Right.
but every week and even month to month, you begin to notice your capacity increase, your cardio capacity, your strength. You're getting up and down the stairs better, you're sleeping better. And so it's not like you need to keep your head down and see absolutely no results. The problem is we're so consumed with the one result, which is, the number on a scale.
Number on the scale.
We ignore the multitude of other benefits that
Benefits.
they're staring us in the face and giving us all this feedback, like, you are doing the right thing. But my point is, once you get going and you just forget about how long it's taking you to get back, you do hit your stride. And by the second, third month, you were doubling what you did the first month. But it's making that deal with yourself, where I make all my clients sign an integrity contract. I call it the Mamba
Oh, I
contract
love it.
because I got it
I
from
love
Kobe.
it.
Once they agree to do the work and stuff, I'm like, this contract is for you, which is saying you're not going to negotiate with yourself. And whatever, if you say, because we come up with like your daily non-negotiable,
Mm-hmm.
if we agree on this and we work on this together and you say, I'm going to do these 6 things every day, and you sign on that dotted line, then you must have integrity for yourself and do that work. And if you keep your head down long enough, like you're just watering the garden, right? You plant the seed, you
Yeah.
water it, you're not looking for the bud to stick through the root every day, it will happen. But it's taking, and I'd love to hear what you said to yourself or what you did to go from, let me just start small, but what kept you engaged from day one to say like day 60?
Wow. Okay, so I'll tell you what my goal was. My main goal was to fit back. I was going on a trip with my family, and I had all this, my mom asked me, "Are you going to buy any clothes?" Caribbean people, you're going on a trip, you got to buy a couple of new outfits. And I just said to her, I'm like, I'm kind of going there to relax. So I'm like, you know what, Mom? No, I'm just going to lose weight to fit in the clothes that I have. And she's like, okay, okay. And I didn't really have a goal in mind. I just wanted to fit in those clothing comfortably. So the scale was great, but that wasn't really what I was looking at. And I think what got me to that point was, and I ain't gonna lie to you guys, it takes a lot of discipline. There's days when I did not want to eat a salad. I did not want to eat those veggies. Protein, what? I'm not about this. Calorie counting, not calorie deficit. I was over it a lot of times. But when I started to feel better within, let's say, a month, it was like 3 weeks, my sleep improved. I was just initially I felt better. Like I noticed my body was reacting better. That's when I kind of said, okay, let's make a switch and let's just keep going. And now that I'm on this track, I kind of have to also say I related to like my background being a Caribbean descent is like we are we don't give up type of people. So I really like leaned into like, okay, your ancestors didn't do everything they just did for you to give up so simple, like so easy. Let's keep going. Let's see how far we can go. And 35 pounds later, I'm still thank you. I'm still trying to go for like a little 5 pounds, but I'm not putting stress on myself over it. Like it's just more of again, I know what I need to do, so I can do it. It what's kind of like once you get your mind past it, it's different. But I'm curious, what are some of your because like food and everything is connected to also the mind, right? Like how we move and how we eat. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like I had to cut my mother cut back, I cut back, my dad even cut back. The plate of food that we used to eat, like it's a lot.
Yes.
So and then you have to kind of unlearn, like, no, you could cut back. You don't need that holy pares. You just
Yeah.
you can add more chicken, more vegetables. It's a balance. What are some of the things that some of your Caribbean descent clients had to cut back on or like unlearn in a sense?
Well, that's a rabbit hole.
Because there's a lot, right? There's a lot
It is a
that.
lot, especially
Mm,
with our background. So this is a really, really layered issue, AJ, with food and with being West Indian. So and this is part of a bigger journey for our generation
mm-hmm.
to kind of break away from I don't say it's a fight against the older generation, but there's a lot of, we did things
Tussle.
this way and there's a hustle, right? I think if we just drop that and we come to a place of understanding the challenges of each generation better,
Yeah.
we'll realize that there's no bad guy, there's no lazy generation. The environment is completely different. Now, I'll say this because let's talk portion sizes in the West Indian community. You got to remember our generation it's our parents' generation. We're very much in survival mode. And one of the things about survival mode, like when we talk about food, there's scarcity around food. And
Yeah.
so when you're coming from even the previous generation, my grandparents' generation, where
Mm-hmm. It
you're
was even
blessed to have a
worse.
plate of food,
Yeah.
and when you get this meal now, you eat as much as you can because you never know. And so you got to fill your belly because you got to go do a next day's work. So back then, you loaded up. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
money, it was necessity.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so from a survival mode, from a survivalist mindset, our previous generation is saying, kids, eat because you never know. And obviously, we can get into a whole discussion about scarcity mindset in the West Indian community.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't take as much as you can now, it could run out.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? I mean, for as enlightened as I am with fitness and health, it still breaks my heart to throw out food.
I get that.
You know?
I get
So
that.
when it comes down to now, okay, understanding that we need to lose weight for our health, we need to break free of that mindset of like you eat as much as you can. That's something that's been passed on to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two, it has been. And then the second thing is we have to, this is the generational gap. Our generation has access to way more information and resources. I mean, the
Talk
fact that we're
about
on
it.
this podcast talking about emotional and mental wellness and all that stuff, this is, and I'll say that for a long time I've had issues. My father's passed decades now, but I had lots of issues with him. But only as I became my own dad and look back and I realized that the poor guy and all the men in his generation just didn't have access to the resources that we did,
Yeah.
so it allows me to forgive them. But that's that. But when it comes to the food thing, we have to acknowledge that our ideas of food are different because of the information that we have access to. And so when we talk about calorie deficit is not starving yourself. And so you might
No.
have the older generation saying, why are you starving
You're not
yourself?
eating.
Right. But then the other thing is too, we get really worked up and uncomfortable with hunger. And
Yeah.
so one of the things I tell my clients is when you eat in a deficit, when you start, tracking your calories and you see that you're eating 2,500 calories a day or close to 3,000 calories a day, even though 2,500 calories is still a lot of calories, that when you put yourself in a deficit, you will experience hunger. You'll
Yeah.
feel hunger. And
Yep.
then, now it's a mind training now where you're like, we have to remind yourself hunger is part of the process. Like you have to allow yourself to be hungry. Food is mental.
Yeah.
And so we're
Yeah.
conditioned to eat at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're conditioned to like certain foods. If you go right, we're conditioned to like rice. We're conditioned to like these either high salt, high sodium foods because of how we were raised. So a big part of the work is understanding your relationship with food, understanding how you were influenced by your generation, but then taking the information in front of you, recognizing the changes that need to be made. And
Mm-hmm.
the tough one is setting healthy boundaries
Ooh, let's talk about that.
with your West Indian family, and yourself. And so anyway, yeah.
I mean, you touched on two things that I still can't get out of my head. Survival mode. I don't think we really realized the trauma behind that our family previous to us had, and how they were trying to, in a sense, just survive, right? Like we talk about the way they were eating, because it's this, they didn't really had stores and stuff, but majority of families back then were, they had their own crop, and they had like a barter system in between each other, and that's how they did things for years, right? Like even my grandparents, like my grandfather would go and he had his goats, his cows, whatever, with his brother and my granduncle, and then they would go to their land and plant what they plant and split it between families. So there was a sense of togetherness even then, and survival, right? But I think back to how we've continued that down the line, the survival mode. And our generation is kind of still in it, but we, as you said, we have resources that we don't have to stay in it for too much, for too long, right? We can actually unlearn the survival mode and put it down. And by doing that, like I believe like our generation is pretty much the staple of breaking a lot of generational
Yes.
choices.
Yes.
We are the ones that are doing the work because we recognize how it feels, and we don't want the next generation after us to feel that way.
Right.
Like just the situation around food and like I remember, yeah, don't get up until you finish it type of thing. And I was 30 something when I realized, well, so I could put this in the fridge and just eat it tomorrow? Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're full, you don't have to keep eating. Like that's something as simple as that. Or how important rest is, how important your
Yes.
sleep is, how important it is that you don't actually have to clean first thing on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like you could actually just chill on your couch and just, relax, and then go ahead and say, okay, I'll
Well,
clean.
we can talk about that too, but I
Because
want to actually.
that's actually also boundaries too, if you think about it. But boundaries with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. But I want to just give a useful thought exercise around food and, not wasting. And this is something that I share with clients too. It is helpful. Is to break this thing about not wasting, which is if you say you cave, say you were trying to be healthy, you caved, you ordered a pizza, and
Mm.
right, you're like, all right, I got this pizza now. But halfway through, you're full, but there's half the pizza left.
Mm.
Now, what typically would happen was say, listen, I paid for this pizza. I ain't throwing it out. I'm eating it. I'm not wasting this money. I'm not throwing out my money. Fair. But if you were, for example, to go to a movie, right? You pay your whatever, $18 for the movie, and you go in. And within the first 5 minutes, you are 100% sure that this 2 hour movie that you paid for is not what you expected. You will not enjoy it. Do you sit through the movie or do you leave?
Oh, I would leave and ask for a refund.
Then you can't get the refund. This is no
Oh, then
refund.
I would just leave. Like it is what it is. But I'm not
Why
gonna
would you
waste,
leave?
because it's a waste of my time. And
Okay.
that's my thought process. Like I'm not satisfied. Like I'm
Yeah.
just not
Yeah.
satisfied. So I
Yeah.
would
Why
leave.
would you give up sit through 2 hours of a bad movie, knowing that you do something better with your 2 hours? But when it comes to food, I employ this strategy for myself. If I
Mhm.
made that decision, now I got this food here.
Right.
We'll be, right? We would absolve ourselves of guilt because we'll put it in a container, put it in the fridge, let it sit there for a week, go bad, and then throw it out.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Because we don't want to throw it right there. But instead of forcing myself to finish that meal, the money is gone. So now
You
the
already
question
spent it.
is, do I treat myself like a garbage can or do I
Mm.
throw it in an actual garbage can? Because it's gone. That is a sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
The money's already gone. It's not coming back. So now, now you have this food, this junk or cheap meal. Do you finish it or do you toss it? Because a lot of us would finish it because we paid for it.
We paid for it
Take in an extra 500, 600 calories for what? Because we
just
feel
because we paid
spending
for
money.
it. Yeah.
But that touches on scarcity mindset, survival
It all
mentality, all of those
connects.
things.
It definitely all connects. It definitely, like the first thing I thought about is, like for example, my parents don't drink, but they have liquor at the house for other people. It's like that similar thought process of you never know who's gonna come over. Might as well get the bigger one. It's like it's rooted in that versus, you know what, I'm just gonna get a personal pizza and just make do with that. It's changing your thought process. Like even down to how I shop is different. Like my mother always had, let's say she had a bottle of fabric softener. She's using the one, there's always like one or two behind. Even if it's on sale, she's like, okay, at least I know I have. And I realized, no, we don't need to do this. It's a mindset. Like you don't need to do it. And it's rooted in a way like how we're raised. We're raised still thinking that we are in survival mode. But you touch base on something that I think is so important that a lot of Caribbean parents do not know jack about, but they're learning some if they're willing, is boundaries. Boundaries are so important, not just for your I think it's good to set boundaries for yourself, but of course we always think about the ones for the others, but it's important to set boundaries. So for example, I don't know about you, but I have moments where my parents would think my off days belong to them until I said, look, I'm tired as is. I will do whatever you want. Give me a break for a moment. Like, let me sleep in. Let me just do the things that I would like to do to recharge. And then whatever it is that you need, I'll make sure I schedule it. And then, okay, perfect. That's a boundary. Or as simple as they want what they want when they want it. They had to learn and unlearn that's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
Their kids are busy. Like my brother's raising children. I'm over here working and running a business. They respect like, okay, but it took some time because their generation was never accustomed to boundaries.
yeah. I want to say something a little controversial, and it is my own opinion, and it's not rooted in any
Okay,
research.
let's talk about it. I'm curious now.
I feel on a very deep level, our previous generation is a little bit envious of our freedom,
Oh, percent.
right? And
No, no,
we
that's not
feel,
even controversial. That's just fact. Not every okay, but not I want to preference by saying not every one of them, but a good percentage of them
yes,
are
yes,
upset. Why do you think they're calling our generation lazy?
yeah. Well, yeah, so to your point, I 100% relate about the weekend visitation, not with my own. I love my in-laws, Houta and Greg. I love you guys. If you're watching this, you know, it's all love. But no, it's true. My wife's Albanian, and she was born in Albania. My in-laws are Albanian. Wonderful family, but same like the reason my wife and I get along so well, and she's my best friend. We've been friends for 15 years. Is because there are a lot of similarities between
Yeah, yeah.
Albanian and West Indian culture, and one of that is the family unit, the extended
Mhm.
family unit, and it's I get it. Like I totally get it. Wanting to spend your free time together as a family because what? That's what happened back then. In the previous generation
Absolutely.
back home, I remember that. Like
Mhm.
every weekend, it was some cousin coming over or some auntie going to. It was great, but we cannot take every single practice from our homeland and just implement it in North America. It just doesn't work. That's one. Two, the reason I brought up the little envy thing is just like, we always give Gen Z a hard time about how mouthy they are and how audacious they are, but they're just on another level of openness and
They're
transparency and
brave and I
a
love it.
level actually trying to get to.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we have the audacity to set boundaries, because I know for a fact there were certain weekends and certain family things when I was young that we had to grow up to that I can see my parent going, I don't really want to do this, but it's family, you got to
So
do
you
it.
have to, yeah.
You have to do it. And so now that we are understanding what you're referring to is a concept. We talk about sleep, but there's also many different types of rest. And what you're talking about is social rest, emotional rest,
Yeah.
sensory rest.
Yes, all of it.
If you work, whether you work a job, a blue collar job where you're physically active, or a white collar job where you're mentally engaged, it makes sense. It stands to reason that you would need time on the weekend to decompress. And it has nothing to do with not wanting to be with your family. They just wanted to preserve your stress. I mean, listen, we might need like a 10-part series on what we're talking about here because when we talk about stress and the nervous system, again, the studies and the resources that the information that we have access to, we see it clearly. Managing stress, the importance of rest, the importance of setting personal boundaries, even with
Mhm.
family.
Yep.
And that's why I say on some level, the somewhat more enlightened older generation would be like, man, I wish people were advocating for me to take some rest on a Sunday.
Oh, 1000%. I agree with you on that. My parents are a bit of the opposite, where they had to tell me and remind me. I used to feel guilty of resting because I knew like my dad was probably one of the most hardest working people I've ever met. And even now, I think I'm around his age when he first came to Canada. And I'm like, I can't imagine being uprooted from a place you've known for so long to come to a cold climate to be with this woman you're in love with. Like, it was like, wow. And it very much hit me because he did this thing where he worked from one job to the next, two jobs at the same time. I found out when I got older, he was in the hospital for exhaustion at one point. I don't think I was born yet. But in my head, I'm like, this man barely gets sick. So that's why I was like, okay, if that's exhaustion, the amount of things you didn't even know to take rest. So now in his late 70s, he's telling me, hey, you paid for your bed. If you want to sleep extra in it, by all means. And I'm
Yes.
just like,
Oh, that's beautiful.
okay. My mom's telling me, don't worry, take your time. Like, just, trust in the process, trust in God, take your time. And I always ask, like, how come you're telling us this? Well, we didn't know we could do it.
Wow.
So
Yes.
now that they're aware, they're like, okay, we're going to tell our kids. One of the biggest lines, if they wake me up, like, some mornings I'm just tired and on a Saturday I'll sleep in. If my dad calls me, my mom calls me, oh, I'm sorry to wake you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just getting up, whatever. And they're just be like, well, you paid for that bed. Lay in it as long as you want. Which was backwards thinking because when on Saturday when I was a kid, it was like get up. So like, but I
Yes.
think over the years they've learned even in their elderly age how important it is to rest, how important it is to set boundaries, how important it is to just take care of yourself. And again, their parents didn't know how to do it. My grandparents probably had no idea. So now that they're learning, they're like, okay, with the last, their silver years of living, they're just like, let's do it now. And
Yes.
kudos to them because as Caribbean parents, that's hard to unlearn for
Yes.
them because like they're stubborn when it comes towards unlearning things because this is how things were. This is how we're gonna do it. And we're not changing anything. So this is what it is, right?
And that's okay.
And that's okay. But for them, it's seeing them unlearn a lot of the steps that they've realized how important it is to sleep, how important it is to eat healthy, how important, like all these things that they've done, it's setting me up for being a senior citizen.
Yes.
Like
Yes. But
it's
I want to ask you though, because I'm on a journey of I went on one I was on one side of the spectrum and I was like, man, our generation really did us over and really gave us all these things. And I'm making my way over to the middle where I am beginning to look at certain practices and say, you know what? Maybe the execution wasn't great,
mm-hmm.
the intention makes sense, right? And so, you made a point about getting up first thing in the morning and getting chores done. Same thing. Do I love it? No. Same. I had to do that before I could even enjoy my Saturday. We had dogs. You had to wash the yard down, put the dogs away, scrub, clean. But as I say that, in my own experience now as a dad, and my wife and I are running a household, our kids are getting older and teaching them responsibility. I'm like, that's actually, again, it depends on what kind of personality you are. You could be the type of
1000%.
to rest first and then get up and get everything done, or
Mm-hmm.
you might be the type of person like my wife. I'm a rest first. I rest first. I kick my feet up, and then when I feel
And
good,
then get to, yeah.
my wife will not be able to rest properly if there's stuff to do. And it took me a decade to appreciate that and not look at it as her pushing herself too much. Because when we power through and get things done, so we use Sundays that day where we have a nice breakfast, we take our times, and then as soon as 10 o'clock hits, everyone's doing their thing. And
Right.
then we wrap up around 2 o'clock. And then we have our time, and then we can really unwind.
Relax. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said as I get older now, I'm like I'm actually implementing a little bit more West Indian sensibilities in terms of like, but what we're really talking about is not one versus the other. It
No.
actually fits under the umbrella of balance and structure. And if
It
you have structure, you can do it all.
absolutely. And I also want to preference from saying like me resting beforehand is just how I feel. I reflect with, okay, can I get up and do X, Y, and Z, which sometimes that happens. Or do I really need to just sit in this bed for an extra hour?
Yes,
And if I need to, instead of me resisting and saying no, let's get up, it was just changing the thought process in my head. Instead of me getting in the mindset, right? Like instead of me saying I have to, it's like, okay, what do I need right now?
yes,
These are my days. So what do I need? Okay, I need this, I need that. Okay, cool. What else do we have to do? And it is organization of writing things out. Like, okay, I have this to do, I have that to do. What are the important things? Like, I'll give you an example. Today, I woke up at 6 a.m. To be fair, I get up every morning at 6. So some days on my weekdays, my body just gets up at 6. I don't fight it. And if I go to bed early the night before, perfect. It's not a big deal. But I got up and I literally deep cleaned my entire place. That
Yeah.
was not on my list in any way, shape, or form. But I just said, you know what? I actually have a bit of energy right now. I might as well do it now because I know next weekend I'm not gonna do it. So let's just do it now and get it over with.
Yes.
Like just get it out the way. So it all depends, right? I think it's just doing what works for you the best like going along the way. Like you said, your wife likes to power through things and then just chill. I get that. I 1000% get that. And I'm like that some days. But then
Hmm.
there's some days where I'm just like, I don't want to do a damn thing. I'm
But
too
you have
tired.
done that. Sorry to jump in there. You have done that within the structure that you have created.
That is my
And
structure. Yeah.
that's your structure. And what you're actually highlighting there is it's funny because a lot of people who are averse to this work, one of the pushbacks I get is, oh, this discipline thing sounds so rigid. It sounds like a prison. But what you just highlighted is there's a lot of flexibility within a structure
Yes.
that you could choose. Coming back to the point I made earlier about when you begin to, train your body to have structure, it will tell you, it will signal to you, yo, we can do this. Just like how you got the rest you needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you got the energy, it's like, you know what? I'm a clean now.
I'm gonna just deep clean. Yeah. And I think you also talked about something really important there. And I just want to highlight this just a bit. When you say like structure, like it's important for you to understand that it's a balance of how you want to do it. It's not a balance how everyone else is doing it. And we don't have an issue with discipline, to be totally honest, because we have been rooted in discipline so much. And especially if you are an immigrant, child of an immigrant, or on our for this topic, a Caribbean child of Caribbean descent, discipline is not our problem. Like
Yes.
discipline is not our problem. And even if you're not, you still don't have issues with discipline because you have to still, there's certain things you have to do for yourself as an adult or as a teen or whatever. You have to do it. Like, for example, not everyone, but I'm going to say, like, of course, you know that you got to shower. You know you got to brush your teeth. You know you got to eat. You know these things, right? So I always say this discipline is not your issue because maybe it's just like the consistency aspect of you having to do it. You think it's boring, you think it's mundane, but there's a flow to it. It doesn't have to be so strict and rigid. There's a flow to it. And at the same time, a lot of us, and I'm so sorry to say this, I'm gonna hold your hand. A lot of us are consistent with bullshit. So like consistency is not your problem, right?
No, we all have a routine.
We
A good
all
one or a
have
bad
a
one, we have a routine.
routine, right? Like, so if I were to ask anyone, like, okay, like, do you have coffee in the morning? Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you have the tea in the morning? Yeah, absolutely, because that's a routine of yours. So discipline is never your issue. Never your issue.
Okay, that's very interesting. I love where you're going with this. So, and we can acknowledge that discipline is not the issue, especially within the Western Union community, because we come up here and we have to
Like,
assimilate to a completely different culture. We work hard. We're often underpaid. So, what is it then that is keeping our West Indian community still on the fringes of
mm,
wellness, of being active and doing the stuff? Is it what that they don't completely believe in the work? If we're disciplined,
mm,
we can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and jump on the train and go work a
and
12
go to
hour
work.
shift or
Yep.
14-hour shift, right? Why then do we not take that same work ethic and discipline and apply it to ourselves? I'm very
You
curious to hear your
sure
thoughts
you
on
want
it.
me to answer this one?
I would love to hear it.
I think this is going to backfire a bit. We're so focused on how other people see us. We are so focused on how people will think or talk about us versus doing the things that we want to do versus just doing things that we need to do. Like I remember there was a point my parents told me where a lot of men of color were getting like prostate cancer. And instead of them going to the doctors to get a prostate exam, they were refusing it. Nope, not going to do it. And unfortunately, yeah, like they passed. But if they actually went to the doctor, because they didn't want their people, oh, you really went and did a prostate, like just something as simple as that. Like, and you need to do that. Or, let's say you want to start a business or you want to become more into wellness or even mental health, right? What do you mean you're going to therapy? Trust in a God. No, I need a therapist and I could trust in a God, but I need someone to speak with. And that's going back to the trauma aspect of it, of what we think that we need to continue to do. But again, we are in a generation where we have so many resources. So I say that in the most, I say this in the most respectful way. How dare you not try to put your own mental health and wellness first. With all the resources that we have, you're literally watching two coaches right now speak about this. So, like, how from your comfort of your home, you didn't have to leave or nothing. And after this, you can go and you can do whatever you want. You can search up ways of you. We have a computer in our pockets all the time. So again, how dare you? And I mean this is a respectful way, not give it a shot and focus so much on what other people may think or say. When it's your
Absolutely.
life, it's literally your life.
So if we were then though, 100% hear you, agree. Because it, when you speak like this, AJ, it's it's loving frustration
Yes.
because we see so many of our loved ones that we want them to grow up and see their grandkids.
Absolutely.
They're holding historical information for us to pass down to us. We need you alive as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about this part, working hard for everything else and everyone else except ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we come back now to our one of our generational wounds, which is this internalized self-hatred, especially
Ooh,
in the Black community, right?
the
So,
crab in the barrel type of thought process.
right? But here's the thing, Jordan Peterson, controversial guy, but I read his book, 12 Rules for Life. And I believe it's the second rule where it says something to the effect of treat yourself like you're responsible for taking care of someone else. And
Mm.
he uses this example of transplant surgery. So, North America, every year, if someone needs a kidney transplant, heart transplant,
Mm-hmm.
the process is very long and very stressful, and the chances of a patient actually matching with a successful donor and going through the whole process very slim,
Yeah.
years long.
Yeah.
But statistically, imagine if you go through, you're on the waiting list, you don't know, it's this really, really messed up thing where someone has to die to have your organ
So you
right
can
in the
live.
match so you can live. And then you go through this stress and you get this one little thread of life and everything works out and you get the transplant. What happens after is that the patient in recovery is supposed to take this suppressing medication so that the body doesn't reject the organ. You got to take this pill daily or
Mm-hmm.
two, I'm not sure. What's shocking is that up to 40% of patients who receive this life-changing transplant will not take the medication. Imagine going through all of that
Right.
headache and you get a brand new lease on life and they say, take this pill and you're going to be okay. And we don't take it. And you take that, this is 40% of people won't even take the
Wow.
medication.
That's a large number.
Right. Second, and then in contrast, if you had a dog or a cat that you love dearly, and the vet said, AJ, you got to give this dog his tablet every single day, that
Mm-hmm.
dog will not miss a dose.
Mm.
And using this example to
Yeah.
highlight that a lot of us have this subconscious, I want to say self-hatred, but it's a lack of love.
It's a lack of self-love.
Yeah.
But I also
We will get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and drive to the airport for somebody.
no, 1000%.
We'll drop everything for somebody.
Or
Right.
host them in our place or whatever.
But we say go to the gym every day.
That ain't
Go.
gonna happen. Why, you know? But I think it's also there's two things that just came to mind. And you mentioned it earlier, but it just came back to my head, which is like one of the important things that I've learned even in my own self-improvement journey is, and I've been able to help clients with this, is bridging the gap. And what I mean by bridging the gap, I mean in terms of generations, what we can learn and what you mentioned, like we want them around as long as possible to give us the information because they have it, right? But here's the thing, we also have to do the same thing, right? Like it's our duty and it's our job to reciprocate the same exact thing. So for me, one of the most important things, as much as we could sit there and point the fingers, and I think we all kind of go through that moment of when we realize like this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. There's a point where you have two choices. You could work through it or you could allow it to bury you. It's up to you. You can allow it to sink you. If you choose to allow it to overcome it, if you allow it to work through it and you heal from it, or healing from it, the one thing you may notice is eventually you're going to be looking at what happened and be like, I don't know their story. I don't know. I know bits of it. I know what they've told me, but I don't know what it's like to actually be in their shoes and know what their feelings and what their emotions are. We think of like in the Caribbean culture, we could say anxiety and depression is new, but they used to call it you're just mad in your head. No, anxiety and depression has been around for the longest time.
I didn't know that I had anxiety for decades.
Oh, I didn't know either.
I didn't know. I'm like, I thought everyone felt like this.
So did I. And did you know that a majority of people of color feel anxiety? So there's like three places you'll feel it: your stomach, your throat, and your head. And the stomach is like you're trying to push everything down. Your throat is your voice. You don't you want to talk, but you can't. And your head is like your mindset. You're all stuck. You're all in the head. Vast majority of people of color, it's here. We want to talk, but we're terrified of the repercussions. We're terrified of how it could come out because in many cases, and I'm not knocking my Caribbean folks, but a lot of them are their kids' first bully. So it's hard for now you're an adult and you're realizing, oh, I've been gaslit. Oh, my parents are narcissists. Oh, I have anxiety.
Yeah.
That moment where I didn't even want to get up and shower, that was depression. Like when you're going through those moments and recognizing it, you take a step back and reflect. You're kind of like, oh shoot, I had a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's not my story. I'm just saying in general, like
Yeah.
because a lot of our brothers and sisters are their first bully. Wasn't some kid, wasn't someone at the job. It was in their home. So how can you even and then on top of it, you want to talk and everything's in your throat. You know, I can't say a damn thing because if I do, the repercussions are gonna be horrid.
But that's why it's so important for our generation and the likes of you, me, and all our peers to like you said we are the generation that's kind of ushering in mental
Yeah.
health and emotional wellness to the
Mm.
generations in our hemisphere. That means we're in the line of fire. That means we got
Oh,
to take those shots, which means it's really important. It's really important that we take these shots knowing what we're doing because there's two things. My personal journey is I'm really working on developing empathy for all the
mm.
generations because everyone has had a burden to bear that the other generation is protected from.
Facts.
And so there's no judgment at all. When we talk about a lot of West Indian kids first bully their parents, obviously those parents are not going in wanting to do that or thinking that.
No.
They're demonstrating behavior that was modeled to them and
Yeah.
in the generation.
Yeah.
So there's the guilt because a lot of our, as they mellow out and then they see our generation a little bit more gentle with the kids and have more of an open dialogue with their kids, they're like, dang, I wish I had known that I can do that.
I could do it.
Guilt, which means that we can forgive that because again, they put us in this position
Hmm.
where we can have these podcasts and these discussions. So it is. I'm not holding anything against them, but it's neither here nor there now. We talk about it because we
Hmm.
want other people to realize that you're not alone, but they have shame and guilt and the lack of resources against them. We
Hmm.
have the knowledge, but to them again, if you're not open, if you're not doing the work, they're mad at me for the way I treated them, and now they're pushing me away and punishing me. To a large extent, maybe a lot of us are,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But whether you're doing it for that or the purest reasons, you still need to do this work because if you're still hung up on getting your parents' approval, no matter how toxic it is, or no matter how high they set the bar, then you are going to unwittingly pass on their behavior that was passed on to you, to your kids and future generations. And so we are in the unenviable position where we need to take their blows saying, you think you're better than me, and you think you know more, and I sacrificed so much for you, and you're so ungrateful, and with your this and your that, that Monique
Yep.
me,
Yep.
like, you think you know everything with
You
your
think
degree.
you think you're big and bad and
It's yes or no. It's not a punishment,
no.
but we know better. And like you said, if we can build ourselves up to become an example for them as well, then we're making inroads.
It's all about bridging the gap. Literally, it's just there's so much you can learn from the like people behind like before us and the ones that are behind us. Like we are you could see yourself as like the person in the middle because it's like you're learning so much. And that's why I say certain things in the Caribbean culture can't be ceased. It can finish with us. Like the bullying aspect, that can finish with us. We
Yes.
could look at it like I didn't like it, so let me not do it to the generation after me. I now have the resources, I now have the know-how that it was straight up wrong what I went through. Let me work on that, but at the same time, let me not do that to the generation after
Absolutely.
you. And
Absolutely.
and as we wrap up, I just want to ask you as being even just a Caribbean man, West Indian man, what would you like to see change as us as a culture?
Wow.
Loaded question.
It is a loaded question, but we can both agree that we're really at the beginning of the healing journey. We're at the very beginning. We're at the starting line. Internet is not even 30 years old.
Exactly.
So there's a lot to undo. I would like as our generation of men to one, and I'll say this really quickly. Hopefully we don't go over, but it's an important point.
No, make the point.
Not every I'm trying to find a happy union between the old generation's teachings and new age teachings and modern teachings. And one of the things right now is a big thing for me is my parenting. So I have a son who's turning 13 this year, a daughter who turns 9. They're in the culture. And I'll tell you, I don't subscribe to North American permissive / gentle parenting approach. I
Right.
very much have worked hard, my wife and I, to find a balance because she's also an immigrant, to find a
Mm-hmm.
balance between the new research and cohesive parenting and communicative parenting,
Mm-hmm.
but also bringing in our own immigrant sensibilities. You work
1000.
hard, discipline. You can get first, second, or third. Give me the Blu-ray, don't let me throw it in the garbage because we want to aspire for more, right?
Absolutely.
And so not all your feelings are valid. You got to know your place. There is a pecking order, and there are a lot of gems within West Indian parenting that a lot of us
1000%.
they kind of get swept under the rug because we're like, oh, we're trying to be gentle parenting and my kids' feelings are this and that. And then, no, 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 no. There's a lot of wisdom in structured discipline,
Mm-hmm.
master apprentice, teacher student dynamic that allows children to be protected and safe and to have a role model in front of you. So as men, we need to stop with this, all these toxic definitions of manhood and alpha this and sigma that, and really just understand that our physical, mental, and emotional health are the most important things. If we want to be better fathers, husbands, friends, leaders, thought leaders in our community, we need to do the inner work. And it's a balance. I'm not talking about being passive or permissive and rolling over. We need to find a happy marriage between we call it our West Indian fire,
Mm-hmm.
right? Our passion, but then we work in emotional growth, wellness,
Yes.
right? Maturity. You talk about therapy. If I can, that's probably like the one thing. If anyone had access to therapy, and I say this again, I've observed my dad who didn't even make it to 60, but I remember he had moments in his life where he was an alcoholic and he struggled with alcohol his entire life, and that ended up being his undoing. But I remember there were points in his life where something would happen. He lost 2 brothers in the span of 2 months.
Wow.
And I remember him going clean, coming home at night, getting up in the morning and going for rides in the park, trying to be healthy. But that demon would always suck him back in. And what I recognized was I could have been his generation, he could have been in mine, and he would have been in my shoes.
Yeah.
He was an intelligent man, he was a civil engineer. And sometimes it's just a matter of if you didn't have the resource and the support around you, you're kind of destined to doom. But for our
Yeah.
generation of men, we don't have that excuse.
Yep.
If we're struggling internally, and if we feel this like latent rage inside us and we feel all of these emotions that are unexpressed, right? Drinking it away, right? Fighting it away, um,
Smoking it away,
smoking
to
it
be
away,
honest.
it's not an answer. And if you have access to resources, if your job has benefits, and you can go talk to someone,
Talk
go
about
talk
it.
to someone. And the best people I've met in my life, I would know them for a long time, and then suddenly they'll just happen to come up in conversation. They'll say, "Oh yeah, I did this in therapy," or "My therapist taught me this," and it's not surprising. I'm like, all these amazing people who I know, respect, admire, and have gone on to build amazing lives for themselves have an emotional outlet. They have someone to talk to, and so we just really need to continue. We've started. We really need to continue down
Continue
that
that.
line of doing the inner work and learning how to express and communicate in a healthy way.
I 1000% agree with you. That's something I think we need to start thinking about more. Men, please, if you need help. Like I read a statistic where this it was like a experiment, and it just said that the rising number of unaliving is actually in men.
Oh yeah.
It's not women. And I was like, "Brr? Like, how's this?" And it's men of color. Again, everything's in here for us.
Yes.
We don't want to talk. So I say that to say this, talk up. please talk up. It doesn't make you any less of a man to feel your emotions, especially when it's bottled in. It's just not helping you. It's just not gonna help you. It's better that you let it out. Crying is not, it's actually more, it's strength to let it out and work through it
And
versus keeping
cathartic.
it in. Yeah. Versus keeping it in and then just letting it out in the most unhealthy way possible. Just take the steps. Again, like you said, if you have benefits at your job, what are you doing? Even if it just means you go and you say, I'm going to go and see an RMT, like get a massage. Do self care. It's not a woman's thing to do. Okay. It's not a woman's thing to do. One thing that I would love to see in the Caribbean culture, I think, is us to break out the cycle of the toxic things that are holding us back from being extraordinary. A lot of us have skills, like amazing skills. Like some of the stuff I see back home in Jamaica, I'm just like how are we where we are? We shouldn't be. Of course, the government sells out a lot of the stuff, but I'm just thinking in my brain, like, even that shouldn't have happened because we could have built right where we are. And I would like to see it flourish in a sense of let's not just give in to what everybody expects us to do and do the things that we just want to do. My grandma lived to 95, and she passed a year ago, and one of the things that I noticed with her death was before, while she was passing, she was in the hospital and they gave her coffee and a croissant. My grandma was a tea lady. I was like, "You drank what?" And she said to me, "That's just what they gave me." And she didn't fight on it. And that's when I realized towards our last days, we may not get to do the things that we want to do. We don't know when our time is coming. So how dare we not really do the things that we just want to do? Instead of living for other people, live for you. If you decide to have kids, have kids. If you don't, you don't. If you decide to build a house, fine. If you decide to migrate to another country, cool. If you don't, you don't. If you decide to go back to school at 35, who cares? Do it. Do whatever you want. Don't worry about what other people around you are going to think. We got to break out of the cycle of trying to impress other people and just live the life that we love. That's what I would hope for to me.
1,000%. And funny enough, when you actually live boldly, it'll come full circle, and those people whose opinions you're afraid of will come around and say, "Man, good for you. I respect you. I respect your courage.
Yeah, why
You
I
live
wish
life
I
on
had the
your own
courage.
terms."
Yeah, they'd be like, you know what? I wish I had the why I wish I had the courage to do what you're doing.
Yeah. Even now, even putting yourself out on social media, filming your podcast, so,
Oh yeah,
everything you're doing, right?
I would have never done this. I had multiple accounts where I'm like, nope, not doing this.
Yeah.
And then when you finally just say, no, people need to see and hear your voice, that's when you switch and you change. But Cam, I want to say thank you so much for doing this. Yes, we clearly have to continue this conversation.
Yes, yes. There's a lot. There's a whole bunch of things. Yeah, we'll keep messaging in the chat, and hopefully we can keep the conversation going because this is really
Absolutely.
important for our community.
Percent. And just for context, Kim and I, we go back and forth on Instagram message and we just go back and forth on things that come to mind and then we bring it to the live. And I would love to have you back. I think no matter what, you're going to come back at this point because we got to continue this conversation.
We
100%. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you again. Oh, tell the people your socials. You forgot to do that.
Yes, I am on Instagram at Cambassier. Cambassier.com. That's Kambassier. And yeah, I just put a lot of content out on my Instagram mostly, and I do some long form content on my YouTube channel. But Instagram is my main platform.
And also he's on TikTok too, by the way. But I will put
Yes,
I'll put your handles in the description so people can go check you out. And for those of you who are watching, we appreciate you for tuning in and staying with us and rocking with us for this last hour. We hope that you gain some insight as well to apply to your own life and to have a successful week. And I thank you for watching another successful Sunday. I will see you next week. And as always, y'all, walk with peace and walk with love.
thank you.